All right, all right. Showtime, showtime, showtime. We live. The AllStar MMA live show every week, Sundays, 8 p.m. Eastern, most times, right? Most times. Sometimes we have some technical difficulties or we might have a vacation or something, who knows, right? But I'm in Thailand. I'm not on vacation. I'm here to do some work, but I'm still going to do the show. It's 7 a.m. over here. So, rough morning for me. You know what I mean? But, anyways, UFC 289, man, it was an incredible, incredible event. Only 11 fights, man. I was surprised that they didn't have more fights on the card just because they were going back to Canada in a long time. Maybe could have stacked it a little bit more, put like 14, 15 fights just for the fans, man. Just for the fans and the Canadian fans. They put a few more Canadians on the card if they could have, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? There were some great fights, some breakout stars, some retirements, some old legends coming back and showing everybody what's up. Um, let's start with Amanda Nunes, man, and her performance against Irene Aldana. I didn't know her name was Irene. I thought it was just Irene, but I found out that her name is Irene. What in Mexican culture, like, is that how Irene is pronounced most of the time? Sicko?
Yeah. It's just different pronunciations of it, but like if you're in America, everyone says Irene. It's like Tanya in Mexico. It's Tonya.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those. We just pronounce
Okay.
it a little bit different.
Tonya sounds much better than Tanya. Tanya sounds like a bland banana. And Tonya sounds like, like she got
It's
some
got some
fire
spice
coming.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Put some of that Tonya on there, man. Let's, you know what I mean? It's much better. It's
Facts.
like sriracha, right?
Facts.
Anyways. Yeah, so Aldana, man, that was a disappointing performance. I'm gonna just say that right now. Sicko, let's start with you. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, even she herself admitted it after the fact, like through Instagram, she had posted it saying she knows what happened, but she doesn't want to talk about it. She just knows that like it'll never happen again, and she knew she wasn't at her best. She couldn't get going. It was a bad night. It's like, yeah, you don't have to tell us. We saw, that's just a sucky way to go out, man. Like especially when Amanda retires after, to know that you had one shot. You get one shot at the queen, and you leave going, I could have done and I should have done way more than I did. Like that has to be the shitty feeling, even more so than just losing. Like losing is all right, but the fact that she went kind of public and immediately was like, I promise you'll never see that again. I think that's what's hurting her more than anything. And that for like a fan, especially me, that I'll be honest, I like wanted to see her win. I wanted to see Mexico as fourth champion. I was rooting for her. So just to see like her corner being on her and being like, you have to go, like you can't keep waiting. You have to do something. You have to get in the fire. You have to be more aggressive. It's like, damn, that's the one thing I didn't expect. Her getting beat, sure, I kind of expected that. I actually thought Amanda would win. I just thought she would have more success and make it more of a fight. And it's just unfortunate that she did it.
Yeah, it was a beatdown, man. There was clearly a skill gap. Like, I don't know, mentally maybe something was in Aldana's head, and some people put other individuals on a pedestal, and some fighters, they go in there and they knock that pedestal down. Others, they get stuck looking up, and next thing you know, 25 minutes have passed, or you're knocked out or submitted, and it's over for you. Yeah, I expected much more for Aldana, but like you said, Sicko, like she had one chance, man. You gotta think of it at like like a lot of fighters say, what I mean, it's do or die. I'm ready to die in there. What I mean, you gotta have that every single time. But that's the mentality, man. I don't know much. I don't know if many people have that, just inside of them. I mean, you got to be a unique individual to have it, right? And maybe Aldana will find that in the future, and she'll let this performance really like affect her moving forward. J Spec is did you see a skill gap, or was it just mental, you think?
I think you touched on something right there that I wanted to build off of. The takes a special someone, right? And I think what I guess what I was seeing what happened, because I don't want to go just so far into skills, because early in that first round, Aldana had a clean counter cross that pushed the lioness. Like she was off balance. It hurt. It was a good ass shot. And I thought that was something she could build off of confidence-wise. If you're gun shy in the first round against the Lioness, I don't blame you. Everybody knows Amanda Nunes is pretty strong out of the gate. So if you're kind of trying to chill, some people in the watch party thought, oh, she's downloading information, all that stuff. I could buy that. And like I said, she had a moment of success, but it's like it never happened. It was like waiting for a seed to sprout that never came. And going back to that special someone, you know, the Lioness, Miss Nunes, is not somebody. She's not some chick. She's the highest watermark in combat sports for women, in my opinion. And you're talking about you're putting yourself up there with the greats of any time, of any era, and there takes a very special someone, usually one person, who sees them as just a person. They don't see Amanda Nunes. They don't see the Lioness. They don't care about that. And that, I think, is Miss Juliana Pena. Now, can she beat the Lioness? Obviously, she lost in the rematch, blah, blah, blah. But she just saw Ms. Nunes as a person. Much like old story long ago, Evander Holyfield was the only person to look at Mike Tyson and just see a man, not a mythical creature, not an unbeatable opponent. And that mental part, I think we touched on. I think there's more Aldana just being a little bit timid, or something happened. I'm not the one eating Nunes punches, and we all know she can clean people out. Maybe she felt the power early and all that. There was just a lot of things that we've seen from Aldana in the past, and none of them were there that night. So yes, the skill level that was shown that night, there was a gap. I think it could have been more competitive. I would probably lean more on the mental side of things. And yeah, you guys are right, man. It kind of sucks that she'll never be able to run it back. I mean, as long as Ms. Nunes stays retired. And I hope, just like you said, JHK, that she uses this as a flame for the rest of her career, because I I think she has I think she has plenty of time and plenty of skills to hold the belt at a later point in time, just not now.
Yeah, it's got to be frustrating for her. Everybody that's watching, put your comments in the chat. We'll get those comments. What do you think? You know, people watching, what do you think of the performance? What did you think of Aldana and Amanda Nunes? Man, like when you look at it, like she's number one greatest women's fighter in the UFC, right? Okay, when you go outside the UFC, you could argue there's been women earlier in the history of MMA that have done phenomenal things, but in the UFC, Amanda Nunes is clearly the best we've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like she has it all. Like showed that she could wrestle in this one. She's wrestled before. You know, she has the most takedowns in bantamweight history for women. That's crazy. I didn't even know that. Like I saw that on the screen. I was like, what?
She just passed it in this fight, right?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
She's breaking records, defending titles, walking away into the sunset at the top of the game. Man, it's insane. Let's get here. Brianna Frost. Hey guys, looking great. I'm still naturally high from the fights last night. Amazing. Naturally high. All right. And Hype. Good day, fellas. What's going on, Hype? And then we got M over here. Nunes showed her class. Aldana might be champ one day. See, so a lot of people still have hope
Yeah.
for
And
Aldana, right? And go ahead.
no, I was gonna say that's true. And but jumping onto what you said, sir, Nunes won on every level. Like there wasn't one piece of mixed martial arts that wasn't displayed. Literally all of it was, and she just was light years ahead. And that's not just trying to keep humping on it, but that's why I think Aldana, it had to be something mental, man. There's no way to me in every facet of the game that she's that far behind.
I mean, she could be
Yeah.
like mentally, yeah, there was something blocking her. Like she definitely had a mental blockage in there. I think we can all clearly see that. But even if Aldana went for it, if she didn't hold back, if she said screw it, if she had that Juliana Pena mentality of this is just a girl, I'm going to take the fight to her, I don't think she could beat Amanda, especially when you see when Amanda wanted to wrestle. That was even a more easier path to victory for her. She just chose not to. Like, I think she loses to Amanda Nunes 10 out of 10 times, unfortunately. But she's gone now. So for everybody saying she could become champion, it's because we don't really know. I don't think there's another girl who we're like, okay, Amanda's gone. this girl's champion. She's going to have a long reign. Like in that division, there's really nobody that sticks out that clear. Like it's going to be interesting to where that division goes from now on.
It is. It is very interesting. We'll get to that. Make sure you guys go into the descriptions, download the AllStar app. Follow your favorite sports as well as utilize the picks option on there for all UFC events. Rob has a league going on. I think Harris, he started his own league. You know what I mean? The infamous Harris, the unbeatable man. J-Spec, how's the league going over there with everything?
It's fantastic. Thank you for asking. Thank you, everybody who's in it. We have more room for everybody. This is only the first month of action, so we're gonna keep going. And there's a game inside of the game. I mentioned it before. Champion of the month gets autographed MMA memorabilia, but also on UFC pay-per-view events like we just had last night. Be the best picker within our watch party space. Preston Kesselring, who supports the show often, won this autograph piece from BJ Penn. So congratulations, Preston, for winning the Ultimate Fight game within J-Spec's Prize League, game inside of a game. Come on, everybody. It's free, and I welcome everybody to try.
Damn. Preston won a BJ Penn autograph, man. That's a legend right there, BJ Penn. Who doesn't love BJ?
Everybody.
Yes, everybody does. Yeah, so like what do they do with the division now? You know what I mean? I have my thoughts on what I would like to see happen with the what is it? The title fight, right? Yeah, vacant title fight. 145. I think a lot of people just agree that it's over. Like let's stop that, right? Let's stop hanging on to that and it's people talk about this promotion does it like this and and the UFC does the same exact shit. Like they do the same exact shit. Like that title that she's carrying around it's pretty much nothing title, right? Because she doesn't defend it, and if she does, it's like a bantamweight that moves up and fights at featherweight. It's just, and she's a bantamweight that moves up and fights at featherweight. It's just, So that division is done. Bantamweight, Sicko. What's the title fight that you want to see?
I think the easiest one to make is Pena and Pennington. Like, there's history there. Surprised that they haven't already gotten after it. You could make Aldana, but with the performance she had was tough. I think it just makes sense with Pennington and Pena to go ahead and run it. Well, like I said, there's no clear cut like number one. There's not a situation of if Amanda wasn't here, this girl would be the dominant champion. Like that's going to be a bit of a dogfight. I think you could see that title switch hands quite a few times.
J-Spec, Erin Blanchfield has put her name in the hat. I don't know if you've seen that because the flyweight division, supposedly they're going to do Grasso versus Shevchenko. I don't know if they announced that yet or not, but supposedly that's what they're thinking about doing. And Blanchfield's thinking like, hey, if the division's being held up with that, let me go to bantamweight and fight for the title. It's a great move by her. I mean, it doesn't hurt to throw your name out there, right? Because it's a title fight. If they give it to you, then great, man. If you win, you're a champion. If you lose, you fought in a title fight, and you go back to 125 and chase after the title once again. J-Spec, do you like that idea of someone just sneaking in there and fighting for the title?
I appreciate the effort, and hell yeah, good move to get your name in there. But no, I don't think you should be able to just switch weight classes and be immediately considered for the title unless you're a champion of the division that you're currently in. I don't think that you can. I'm just not for that. I don't like that part of it. And also, I really like what Sicko had to say about Pena versus Pennington, because let's face it, there's too many instances in the modern era right now where we have guys on streaks, men and women, Rocky being one of them. They're on a big old streak. They're veterans. They're not going to do this for another 7 years. And they've earned that spot. And to just and nothing against Erin, she's young. She's not a titleist. She never was yet. She probably will be. But to just skip the pecking order, to me, seems in poor taste if I'm the one calling the shots. I'm going to say something that will get absolutely nowhere other than this space, but this is the time for a Grand Prix. This is the time when the clear champion leaves the belt, then you take the top however many numbers you want, even if you just want the top 4, and let them fight for it clearly so that the new champion is not, oh, Dana White privilege or, oh, that's favoritism, because that's what we're going to get no matter who you pick. If Aaron gets it, people are going to hate. If you put Pena and Rocky in it, people are going to hate. If you have a tournament, then it's earned, deserved, and legit. But I know damn well that's not going to happen, but I just had to say it. I know.
In the words of Dana White, that's just not what we do here.
Yeah. With Amanda, you know, I mean, after the fight, during the post-fight press conference, she mentioned that, you know, since she's retired, the next champion is not going to be a real champ. Well, it's not going to be a real champion. Basically, that's what she said, right? Because she retired on top. But to me, the best case scenario for the division, and probably what the UFC probably wants to do or probably wants to happen, is to have Juliana Pena become the champion, because she beat Nunes, right? You need the next person that holds the belt to have a win over the previous champion, right? At least, even if it's not the last fight, you need to have that, right? Because then you can promote it. Like, you know, Amanda Nunes retired, but Juliana Pena has a win over her. And then maybe you could draw Amanda Nunes back with Juliana Pena, because Juliana Pena, she's cutting the promo all the time, right? Even after this fight, when she retired, she was cutting the promos, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Juliana Pena is definitely going to fight for the title. It's just, who is she going to fight against? And I think what they should do, before I get to Sicko, I just want to put my thoughts out there. I think they should move Valentina back up to bantamweight and have Juliana Pena fight Valentina, because Valentina has a win over Juliana Pena and it's a vacant title. So you don't have to really be coming off a win, right? And you let Erin Blanchfield fight Alexa Grasso in the meantime, because it seems like she's ready to go. So, and Valentina has fought at bantamweight before, has fought for the title before. I would like to see it. And then you get it. And if Valentina wins, then you have someone that becomes another 2-division champion. You know, not at the same time, simultaneously, but you know what I mean. And they love Valentina. They would love to see Valentina, if she becomes champion at bantamweight and defend it a couple times, because they love Valentina. And then have like Alexa Grasso, you know, pushing for Mexico and winning, I mean, continuously if she can. That's what I think. Maybe from a business standpoint, that would be good. And maybe for even Valentina, you know what I mean, to move back up and chase after something new. Sicko, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I kind of like the idea more so if she does fight Grasso and becomes champion. And then she just fights the winner of, like you said, Pena and whoever's the current champion. That way she can get that double champ status. And I think Valentina is actually one that can simultaneously defend both. It's just she's going to be fighting a little light at 35. It's tough when somebody's fighting at a higher weight class and they have to like really bring themselves down to try to fight at both weight classes. But Valentina is more of a natural 25er. So her going up to 35, if she could win there, that she can make that weight class super, like, you know, there wouldn't be an issue there. She just wouldn't be big. I don't know if she needs to. Tough fights though for her and Blanchfield. Like, I think we're starting to get to that day and age where like some of these girls are just big. Like Val moving up right now, especially the Shevchenko that we've been seeing lately. I'm not gonna say she's washed up. I hate that term. Like, I'm not gonna say she's washed it all. But her now with the size of these girls that are fighting at that weight class, like Pena's not small. Aldana would have to cut a leg off to make 25. Like, these girls are big, even from Blanchfield's standpoint. Like, Blanchfield's not a 35er either. Like, she can't just move up there easily. So it's going to be tough for those girls that want to move up. I would say just Grasso, Valentina, let's go Pena. And Pennington, in my opinion, like I said, Adana, just that performance, unfortunately, I don't think she has a claim to be made for her to fight for the title again. She would probably have to get another win to get back there. But that's what I would do. And Valentina, that would be a good opportunity. I just think it's hard for me to believe that Valentina has just been like afraid of Amanda Nunes, or that's why she didn't want to move up. I feel like if she wanted to move up, she would have done it a few fights ago when she was still the 25 champion. She could have moved up and fought Nunes for the third time to be the 35-pound champion. But an easier path to victory always makes sense, you know?
No matter what, it's a trip, man, that no matter who's fighting for the title, Amanda Nunes has beaten them. Like, she's really cleaned out that division. You know what I mean? Like, literally cleaned out the division. You know, we talk about that all the time. Oh, this guy needs to clean out the division. Amanda Nunes basically has cleaned out the division, because anybody that they put together for a title fight, she has won. And I would love to see her do like a little version of her own Conor McGregor from retirement and just be tweeting things during like the bantamweight title fight, right? Just to be out there, just to have fun, you know what I mean? Like, oh, because do you remember the fight, Pennington versus Nunes? That was a brutal one, man.
They were all
That was a
brutal.
brutal
that
no,
whole
because
run.
remember she quit on the stool.
Yeah.
That's just like crazy brutal stuff right there. Anyways, yeah, man. What do you guys think in the chat? What's the future for Amanda, or not Amanda Nunes, for the bantamweight division? You know what I mean? Who do you see? Who do you like? Pennington definitely is going to whatchamacallit, fight for the title, right? We'll just see who against who. M is saying, I like Maria Bueno Silva in the future. I like her as well. I think she's gonna come up, right? Oh, another crazy statistic is that there are no Brazilian champions. None in the UFC. It's like the first time in like, I don't know, ever, I believe.
Probably feels like it.
Yeah, like I don't think it's ever happened.
Half a step back to the women's champ situation. I think Valentina deserves the opportunity to do the champ thing, but from a business point of view, because we know that's what the UFC's been about lately, do you really want to put yourself back into the same shoot that you were in previously? Because there's only 3 women's division, and if you go in and put, I'm just hoping for the best. Valentina's still Valentina, and then now she's locking down 2 divisions. You're freezing the women out again. Like they only have 3 titles that they can fight for, and then 2 of them are hogged up. That's fine. Or if she just moves over completely and then gives Blanchfield and Grasso the opportunity. But then you know what people are going to do if Grasso wins and all that? Oh, this is work. This is all on purpose. They're forcing the Mexican champions because they're trying to enter, that culture and that whole, what they're trying. We all know what they're trying to do there with the PI and all that. They're really pushing the Latin American market and the Hispanic community market. So yeah, it's just, I think the best thing is one or the other, because I believe in the bullet. And if you give her the opportunity, she's just going to lock down 2 divisions. And then you got a whole bunch of women just stuck in the mud.
Yeah. Reese saying he wants Juliana Pena, of course.
I mean, she's got to be the one to fight. It's just who.
FC brings up an interesting name. Don't you think Holly Holm still has a chance and deserves to compete for a title shot? Well, she's always getting every chance, right? She's getting all the chances. She's like the Uriah Faber of the women's division, right? Getting every chance. And I think she just signed an 8-fight deal. So she's not retiring anytime soon. It doesn't seem like. I feel like she will fight for the title again eventually because Amanda Nunes is gone, right? And and she could possibly become champion at like 40 something years old, which is insane. Like I don't think any woman has done that at that age. And she's physically like gifted, you know what I mean? Like she's ridiculous, right? Like no fat on her.
Built like crazy.
Plus she's changed her fighting style. Like she's gone the grappler route, which adds time on the clock. Yeah.
Clinch route. The clinch route. Yeah.
Clinch warrior.
Reese saying, also, I think Juliana Pena versus Holly. Oh, okay, so that could be a possibility because she is coming off a win, Holly Holmes, right?
Well, it makes sense too because Holly has wins over Aldana and Pennington.
Yeah, so that it's gonna be interesting, but I think there will be a title fight before the end of the year, in the fourth quarter.
For sure,
someone's gonna be fighting. I think it all depends on when Juliana Pena is ready to come back. Mm-hmm. And when she's ready to come back, they're going to line her up with someone. And Pennington's probably going to wait because she wants that title fight. I think mentally she's in a different spot than she was when she fought Nunes back in the day. Yeah, man, it's crazy, man. The division is shaking up. Amanda Nunes, it would have been better to see somebody come in that was able to handle Amanda Nunes. You know what I mean? Like not on a whim. You know what I mean? Not on like a mental breakdown like she had with Pena, but like legit, like skill for skill, like go in there, stand with her, and maybe outstrike her, You know what I mean? And then finish her, or just I strike her and get a good decision win, like clear decision. There's no controversy. I like to see those types of things, right, happen, because why? Then that champion either retires or they come back and try to chase after that person, right? Who's the champion now? And she did that with Pena, right? So I guess she proves it a little bit, but I would like to see it, further.
You wanted
She did a
a
GSP.
trilogy. You wanted to see the third with her and Pena.
Yeah, like kind of end it with that, like Amanda Nunes should. I wish she would have said in the cage, I have one more fight left, one more thing to prove, which is the trilogy against Juliana Pena.
Pena, I'm
And I
finishing
think
you
that
this
would
time.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah, and that would have actually
Yeah.
had some steam on it, I think, because now it's the retirement fight, right? Now heading into it, there's going to be a lot more attention to what's happening, right? And Pena is going to turn it up as well. It's like, I'm going to retire her. You know what I mean? She's going to use that against Mania. But it didn't happen that way. But you never know, right?
Yeah.
The UFC could go at her and be like, Amanda, I got one more fight for you. Just do this one. Last event, last pay-per-view of the year. We're going to be going back to Miami. I don't know, man. Maybe they can entice her, but
I think one of the best things in combat sports, and good for every division, no matter what it is, men and women, is trilogies, dude. Trilogies are like to me as a fight fan, to me that's like what you hope for, where there's two people who are really, really good going at it, and one, it went one piece, and you get the trilogy. Like, it's magic. Look at all the great fighters you think of throughout history of all sports. Usually there's a trilogy involved in their career somewhere.
Yeah.
FC agrees with you, man. He says, yes, a trilogy with Juliana would be perfect retirement, but only Amanda knows what's best. Yeah, and you know what? I think that's a fight she's very, like, heavily favored to win, without a doubt, right? So, but the thing is, it's always a risk, man. There's always a risk. You could go in there and blow your knee. Next thing you know, you lost the title of the trilogy fight where you're supposed to retire. You're like, your knees all mangled up, and you didn't even lose because of skill. You lost because your body failed you, right? And that's the thing in sports, right? The body fails a lot of fighters, a lot of athletes.
I want to give Nunes credit for walking away on top. There's so few people who've done it across all sports. A lot of times they get drawn back into the flame. We don't know the future, but to have the resolve and the clarity of mind to go, nah, I've done it. I've been there, done that. This is my time. I'm leaving on top, because let's face it, it's over 95% of champions stick around too long and they go out with an L. So big kudos to her for knowing when to put down the card, so to speak.
All right. Make sure you guys go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app. If you follow sports, it's one of the best apps of all time to have and keep up with any kind of sport. You know what I mean? Anything, especially fighting. And the picks option, take advantage of that. Go in there, make your picks. Let's go to the co-main event. BMF, one of the most exciting guys that we've ever seen, and I think he's underappreciated a lot, man. I know people appreciate him, but I think he's underappreciated. They put a lot of, clout into, like, Justin Gaethje, and he's great. Michael Chandler, he's great, but they're not as exciting as Charles Oliveira, man. I'm telling you, and he wins fights. Right? Like, he makes it dirty and nasty, and he's not afraid to just go in there and risk it all. And I don't know if we've seen a fighter that is so risky to the point where it's kill or be killed, even in title fights, and get to the point where he becomes a champion like he did against the level of competition that he did, and then lose the title and then fight that, like a lot of people thought would be like the next title challenger, and smoke him in the first round. Sicko. Olives, man. Insane.
Smoked him. Yeah, the only thing I would disagree there, I think he's appreciated, man. I think he's finally got to that point. You see the Canadian crowd going crazy for Charlie Olives like that. All the timeline, everything that I see is just Charles love, man. I don't know if I've seen somebody this appreciated, to be honest. I think skill set wise, it's probably like people still don't think he could get it done against Islam again, which Islam's a monster. Like, that's tough for anybody. But in terms of appreciation, in terms of admiration, I don't know if there's a fighter on the roster that is admired the way Charles is. Like, think about people that hate Charles or dislike him. It's very few. And if any, it's just he can't be Islam. That's the only knock on him. There's no like personal, it's not like John Jones. It's not like Islam gets a lot of hate. Even Leon still, Kamaru got a bunch. Izzy's the most hated. Like, I don't know if there's anybody like Charles where it's just, oh, we may not think he's good enough, but nobody dislikes Charles. Like, everybody is a fan of this guy because, like you said, his style is just insane, man. It's just crazy. Like, you can still see the game plan there. When he came against Dariush in this last fight, you saw immediately, I think the first strike he threw was that high kick that ended up landing. You saw what they were looking at. It's not like he's going in, no, I don't want to throw shade at Justin Gaethje, but it's not like he's going in crazy like that. It's not like he's going into, what does Gaethje say, to create car crashes. Like, he's not really going in for that. He just wants to march forward. Like, there's just something in the back of his head, and maybe it was his time that he spent at 45 and that losing streak he was on, that switch of just like, I am never going to let somebody push me back again. Like, no, I don't care if I get knocked out. I don't care if I get submitted. I don't care if anything bad happens. I am never going to let somebody push me backwards again. And ever since that happened, he is by far, in my opinion, the most entertaining fighter. I love watching Charles Oliveira fight, man. Like, I could watch this dude fight anybody, anytime. Like, it's just a thing of beauty to watch him. And to smoke Dariush like that. I mean, even on the timeline, I've seen people say, oh, Dariush might have been overrated. That's how good Charles is that people think Poirier was overrated when he fought Charles. People think Chandler was overrated when he fought Charles. People thought Gaethje might be overrated after he lost to Charles. After they lose to him, all of these guys who are top contenders, two guys who are fighting for the BMF belt, all got stopped by Charles and immediately lost that stock, lost credit into them being that guy. Everybody thought Dariush was the toughest fight for Islam before this fight happened. Everybody. And now everyone's like, oh, Islam would have killed him. That's how good Charles Oliveira is. And for anybody sleeping on him, anyone that thinks that this next fight with Charles and Islam is going to go exactly the same way, don't sleep on him, man. He's been slept on too many times. He's been proving people wrong way too many times for you to think that he has no chance in the rematch against Makhachev.
The BMF title, man, that thing is like something that you get out of a Cracker Jacks box now, right? Because Charles Oliveira, he beat both those guys, finished both of them.
Yeah.
He's the BMF, dude, like, without a doubt. Like, I don't understand why I understand why they're doing that fight, and it's a great fight, great matchup. It's going to be one of the best fights of the year, but it's just, when you look at actual BMFs, you know, and the most exciting fighters are not always the best fighters, right? Like, Islam is not the most exciting fighter, but he's probably the best, right, at what he does, and probably can neutralize pretty much any kind of style. Yeah. But Oliveira and Islam too, that's the fight, man. Like, how could you not make that fight right now? You know, like, that's the fight you want to see. You want to see them fight and see who is better, right? Because I'm pretty sure Oliveira's going to be ready, man. I'm pretty sure he's going to be, you know, straight up like an animal. Like, it's like his last fight, you know what I mean? Because, man, I don't know how long he can last with this style, dude. Because sometimes these guys hit a cliff, right? They hit a cliff. And let's get into this comment from Ree. Ree says, Beneil Dariush never fought the same level of comp as Charles Oliveira, and he finished most his fights. Yeah, man, that's kind of true, man. It's kind of true. I think Charles beats Islam in the next fight. Preston, Charles looks like he's back to his old form after losing to Islam. And Preston, congratulations first off of winning the autograph BJ Penn picture. And is this right? Beneil Dariush, you know what I mean? Like, J-Spec, I know that's your boy. What'd you think?
Well, to jump a little bit on what you guys said just quickly, I think the public, I think the fans, I think everybody loves and supports Charles by this point. He's proven all of it. Where he is underappreciated, English, where he's underappreciated is by the UFC. The UFC has slept on this dude for so long. They don't, just like JHK said, man, like, where's his promos? Where's his sunshine? Where's his like extra TV time? Where's his like Toyo Tires commercial. I don't know. I'm just making up stuff. But like, dude, come on. Like, just like you said, how many fights do we got from him before he puts down the gloves and says, "Adios, folks. Thanks for the good times, man." You have a gem that people around the world like. I mean, everyone on the planet likes this dude, but the UFC is just not getting behind him. He's the most unappreciated modern champion I can think of, while simultaneously being, just like Sickle said, maybe the most entertaining champion. I know he's not the champion right now, but most entertaining to watch champion defending the belts. Because let's be honest, a lot of time title defenses are a little bit snoozy. Man, like, now back to Mr. Dariush. Can I feel more bad for someone who was in a fight? I don't know if I can. But you know what? You have your chance. It's a fight. This is why we watch. You got two super highly trained dudes, and this is what happens. You lose. There's only 3 out. Well, there's 4 outcomes technically, but who cares about no contest, right? There's win, lose, and draw. And a draw was probably unlikely. So you got the other 2. You didn't win, and this is the fight game. I hated to see it. I didn't like to see him get wrecked, but at the same time, I'm just like everybody else, man. I really like Charles, so it didn't hurt my feelings that he won. It was like when I went going into this fight, I kind of just sat back and was like, let the best man win and give us the show that we all hoped for. They did. And man, I just hope all the best for Mr. Dariush in the future. However long he keeps fighting, keeps giving us good fights. But man, obviously Mr. Dariush gets an L on his record, but I think us as fans and watchers of the sport, we all got a big win for ourselves. We got a great fight. 2 likable guys. Someone had to lose, like I said, and it's just the way the sport is. There's no third place, man. So that's what it is.
Well, we like to describe the UFC as the highest level, like the whole UFC roster is the highest level, but actually it's not, right? Let's be real about the situation. The highest level is inside the UFC, the top contenders, the champions is the highest level, right? And Beneil Dariush has reached that highest level and has done well for himself. And this is only 1 loss. It's not over for Beneil, right? Like, Beneil could win his next fight and fight for the title. It's not over, man. Like, he snapped a win streak, yes, but you lost to Charles Oliveira, man. There's guys that have lost to Charles Oliveira and went on to fight for the title. You know what I mean? So it's Beneil, it's not over for him. You know what I mean? I think he's got another run in him. We'll see what happens. We'll see what they want from him. But I think he's going to end up fighting. A lot of the fighters in that top 15 are booked. So you got to think of like the winner of some matchup. Like, I think if Armin is still winning, because Armin fights, I think next weekend, they put that fight together. Armin versus Beneil Dariush. I think that's going to be a phenomenal matchup. And Armin is one of those guys that needs a matchup. You know what I mean? Like to prove that he's up there, that he should be up there with the top 5. And Beneil needs to prove that, hey, these young guys coming up, they can't fade me. You know what I mean? Like I can take them out as well. Crazy Pato says, you know what's crazy? Yes, Crazy Pato. Jakar Close was 1 punch away from being the one fighting Charles last night. And yeah, it's crazy. That is crazy, right? Jakar Close was close to finishing Beneil, right? He was doing really well. And in a way, Beneil's kind of like Charles, if you think about it, right? Like, he has kind of like a reckless style, fun dude to watch. Going back to Charles, though, Charles is one of the best, like, at the highest level. That's the most exciting. There's not many guys out there like that, right? There's guys that you appreciate for their skills and for their mental fortitude, you know what I mean? But Charles Oliveira is just like pure violence all the time, 100 miles per hour, all gas, no brakes. You got to appreciate those guys while they're still around, right? And I hope he's around for 5 more fights at least. I hope so. I hope he doesn't like fade away into the sunset like some guys do. You know what I mean? Like, they just fight for too long, because his style is just not going to be. And it seems like the weight cuts are really tough for him as well. So So the next fight you guys think is Charles versus Islam?
Has to be. I mean, who else is there? Like, what else do you have at that class? I mean, it can't be the winner of Justin and Dustin. Like, they both lost to Charles. How are you gonna have them beat each other and be like, okay, now you jump Charles just because we want to see one of you fight Islam?
Yeah.
Like, that wouldn't make any sense. They gotta wait. You know, this is for the BMF belt. Be the BMF champion, and let Charles go and get his rematch. Because, like you said, also even from a business standpoint, who doesn't want to see that fight? I would. I definitely don't want to see Dustin or Gaethje against Islam more than I want to see Charles. Like, that's just my opinion. Like, me personally, I don't. I don't know if you guys feel differently. Let me know. But there's nobody I'd rather see fight Islam right now. And maybe Volk, but we already know that's taken care of. Like, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Next, at least for Volk.
I think the fight. I think they're saving. Well, I don't think it looks like they're saving Islam for the Abu Dhabi show, right? The pay-per-view out there. I don't think Charles Oliveira wants to go out there and fight again. From what I heard, a lot of fighters don't want to go out to Abu Dhabi and fight.
I mean, Charles
that they prefer.
His post-fight interview, he said, I'll go to his hometown, I'll go to his backyard, and I'll fight him out there. Okay. But we'll see. We'll see.
Is also, that where they Dana fought last time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wasn't it?
I'll just say, like me and Sicko answered the same thing. It has to be. It's the most it makes the most sense on a like what's legitimately happening, and then it also makes the most sense on let's sell pay-per-views. I mean, I keep always like I work for the UFC, like I want them to make more money. I do, but that's the way it works. You gotta put the hot mixes together. They seem to be on that trend. And that's the hottest one. I mean, I don't even think Charles had his belt. Not has belt. I don't think Charles had his hand raised yet. Obviously, you knew the result of the fight, but he didn't have his hand raised yet. And people in the watch party were like, "Oh, I guess it's Islam. I guess it's Islam." Like it's. I mean, I don't know. I think if they did not do that fight, I think people would be super disinterested in whatever happens next that isn't Islam and Charles. So it's got to be.
There's just nothing else. Like, that's the problem. Like, everyone had high hopes for Sarukian. He gets derailed by Gamrot. Then it was like, okay, maybe Gamrot. He gets derailed by Dariush. Even his last fight with Jalen Turner, he didn't look dominant like that great. And then in between there, it's just all the guys that have already been there. They've all already fought each other. They've already lost. And more importantly, they've all already lost to Charles. I mean, look at the next guys in line. Dustin, Gaethje, Dariush, who just lost to him, and Michael Chandler, who also lost to him. Like, Charles has cleaned out it's like the Max Holloway situation with Volk. Like, whoever fights him, you don't feel like that's the guy who has the best chance.
Yeah. Well, I want to see it. That's something that I want to see. Everybody, go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app, utilize the app for your sports needs and UFC pick'ems, man. Pick fights, win prizes, accumulate points. All right, let's go to the next topic. Ice Viking, earlier in the chat, he said Canada sweep. Yes, Canada came in and man, they did their thing. Let's look at the names. Mike Malott, Marc-Andre Barrio, just Jasmine Jasudavicius, Eamon Zahabi, Kyle Nelson. Yes, there you go. Kyle Nelson. Man, I think the biggest upset was Kyle Nelson over Blake Builder. Like, Kyle Nelson came in with a 1-4-1 record in the UFC. And Blake Builder was undefeated with a pretty decent performance in his debut. And man, Kyle Nelson just bullied him bad. Like, the size difference was tremendous for Kyle Nelson. And yeah, Kyle Nelson, man, in front of that Canadian crowd, he did his thing. Congrats to him. But let's go to Mike Malott, man. A lot of people are saying Mike Malott is the next Canadian star that they can build. J Spec, what do you think about that?
I think Canada is lacking significant star power, so you got to go with your lead horse in this scenario. It wouldn't be smart to choose somebody else. Like, Mike Malott's the furthest up in Canada right now, but to saying that he's gonna be world champ. That I'm not gonna diss him. I mean, maybe who knows, but that's not my initial feeling about him. Maybe because I don't know. Maybe because he's there just hasn't been like that threat from Canada. Like I remember, I know it's a different era, but a little while ago, different numbers on the calendar, the Canadians were like a problem. And this is the first time that they've done really good in Canada or with this many Canadians on the card because we just don't see that volume of Canadian fighters in the UFC like we used to. So, hey, I am not hating. I'm super happy for Team Canada, especially with all the other life and weather and fire things going on over there. God bless the people of Canada. But I think that's a little premature. But good luck, Mike, and I enjoy your fights, dude. So keep going, man.
Yeah, man. Let's be realistic. Mike Malott is talented. Clearly, he's a finisher. Adam Fugit is 1-1 in the UFC. This was a fight clearly for Mike Malott to have a showcase, right? Like, he could have got knocked out. Fugit is dangerous, but I feel like they saw this matchup and said, okay, we'll need to give one to Mike Malott, especially on pay-per-view. I mean, it won't really look good if a Canadian loses on pay-per-view, right? They need to have someone there hyping it up. Mike Malott, what's your thoughts on him, Sicko?
I mean, he looked good. I don't want to take anything away from him. He's 3-0 in the UFC. I think this is like 5 or 6 straight wins now, including the Contender Series. So he's good. Like, don't get me wrong. But he's also 31, and this was his toughest competition yet. So let's see him compete against somebody that has a winning record in the UFC at the very least. Like, let's see him compete against somebody who we know, like, okay, if you beat this guy, then you're for real. No disrespect to Adam, but he just isn't the person he isn't the litmus test for me to say, if you beat Adam, then that means you can be champion eventually. Like, no, unfortunately not. But he looked great. He looked good. And more importantly for Canada, I mean, what a great showcase for them, man. That's always cool whenever they have like all of the fighters in whatever area they're going to get a clean sweep like that. I didn't expect it, but he was one that I did expect to win, and he did what he was supposed to do. He looked good.
Going into that, Mike Malott was like the guy going into this fight that pretty much fans and everyone before this all happened, they're like, he's the Canadian that's going to win. There was big question marks on everybody else. The next guy down the list, Marc-Andre, a lot of people weren't fully sure he was going to win. And then the previously mentioned fight with a Builder, everybody was on Builder. Nobody was with Kyle. Like, maybe a few bettors out there or whatever's. But let's be honest, like if Mike would have lost, dude, there would be like the most polar opposite thing being said versus like future world champion. They're like, this guy's trash. Like, he was the guy that's supposed to win. It was more Mike's to lose than Fugit's to win, if that makes sense. Does that how the phrase works? Anyways, you know what I'm saying.
I mean, that was the same thing for Builder in that fight too, right? Like, this was supposed to be Builder supposed to get him up out of here. Like, hey, you're 1-4, 1-3, whatever you are. Builder, come in, you're hot, you're the young prospect, get this guy out of here for us. And he was just like, nah, this is going to go differently. The one that I was more impressed with was the one that I was more impressed with was Jasmine, her win over Miranda Maverick. Yeah. That one was like a very impressive win. I honestly thought Miranda was going to have a little bit more success in there, and she shut her down.
Well, I thought that they had kind of like the same style, and Jasmine was just better
at it
at this point in their career. I think she was just better. She's more comfortable, even though she had lesser fights in the UFC. Miranda Maverick, man, she's a fighter that I feel like hasn't competed, hasn't performed to the level that we all expect her to perform at, even though she's cracked the top 15 somehow, some way, but now she's not, I mean, she's, Jasmine's top 15 now. Right. And, Jasmine, man, she's a tough matchup, right? She's tough. She got a good chin. She can scrap. She's got a good gas tank. She might not be the most skilled, but she said that to me in interviews. She's all like, yo, you just got to let me fight. Like, I don't need to have this intricate game plan. You know what I mean? Like, I know what I need to do. Just let me fight. Let me get on the job training. And I think that's the best way for her to fight. And she's done it in her last two. and she's done really well, especially now with the ranked opponent, Jasmine. You know, what I mean, I, I'm been impressed by her. You know, what I mean, and Mike Malott, going back to him, I like to see him fight like a Daniel Rodriguez, somebody in that welterweight division that has been in the top 15, that's out of the top 15, coming off a loss. He's kind of like the litmus test maybe for Mike Malott to see if he could get Daniel Rodriguez out of there. If he could get out Daniel Rodriguez out of there, then he could go to the next level, right? Because to be honest with you, they need to build him like Ian Gary. Even though he's 31, if he fights more often, build him like Ian Gary. That's what they should do, because there's not much superstar pedigree, right, from Canada outside of I guess Mike Malott. This is what people are saying. Marc Andre, he's a guy that always comes in. You never know what to expect out of him, and he did a great job against Eric Anders. You know what I mean? Eric Anders, ahead of this fight, man, like there was some issues, I think, because he went back to fight ready, and they didn't allow him to come back, and it was not even because of what he did. It was because of some kind of politics that was going on. And I heard also, when I was interviewing what's her Vanessa Demopoulos.
Mhm.
She just recently fought, right? And she had to switch camps because of the same situation at Fight Ready. Like she said, she had to leave because of politics, and she has no problems, but it's weird, man. But anyways, and she didn't do so well in her fight either, right? She missed weight. You know what I mean? Like the mental, man, your mind needs to be right, and it didn't seem like they were right, or it was right for Eric Anders. So Marc Andre, congrats to him. That's 2 in a row. Tough guy. Let's move on to something more important from this card, which is Nasruddin Imanov versus Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis, another clash of headbutts. This is not Lethway. What is going on with what is going on, J-Spec? Chris Curtis is your guy, right?
That's my dude, Mr. Curtis. Love you, bro. Man, first off, at least there's a call, right? The correct call happened. Like, hey, there was a headbutt. Let's stop this. We all know what happened that other time. It didn't. So, good for that. It was hard to watch, honestly, as a friend, but as a fan more so, because we were discussing this just because you could tell Chris wanted to fight, man. Chris wanted to fight. He was begging for time. He was begging for time to just let his eye clear up a little bit. Like, that cut was nasty. I think everybody's seen it. It was pretty gross. I totally agree with stopping it, but it seemed like they stopped it because he answered honestly. And I don't like when people tell the truth, answer honestly, and then they get penalized for it, And sure, he didn't take a loss. It's a draw. But that's both fighters are penalized. Nobody gets a win bonus, I don't think, right? So I don't like when you tell the truth. Like, no, I can't see, but give me a moment. But this goes into the rules. What's written down? Look how long. It's only not that long ago that they added time for eye pokes, right? Remember when if you got an eye poke and you couldn't see and you answered, no, I can't see, game's over? Only recently they added a 5 minutes for that. The 5 minutes for groin strikes have been ever since. But now we found another hole in the rules. There are many, and this being one of them. Why with a head clash does that fighter not get 5 minutes to just give him a chance? I mean, it's tough watching a guy, and it doesn't matter what your job is, watching a guy beg for a chance to work. And Chris was almost at that point, like, man, just let me have a moment. Just let me have a time. Let me have a time to let my eye, like, it was, that part bothered me. On the other hand, like I said, good call by the ref. What's fair is fair. It's a draw. I hope he takes his time, heals up, gets it all good. Run this back at a different time. Nothing against Imavov, because up to that point, Imavov was winning, in my opinion. So, it is what it is. Once again, fight game, anything can happen. Shitty result, but the right things happened along the way. And I also want to give Mr. Curtis, kudos for being honest. Because how many times do fighters lie? Fighters lie all the time just to keep fighting. And he could have said, no, I can see, but he didn't. So just,
Well, if you want to keep fighting, you're going to lie. That's just part of the game, right? If you want to keep fighting, you're going to lie.
But that wasn't a cut that like was easy. That was big, right in your shit. If you can't see, you can't see, man. Like I know,
but if you want to fight, you're gonna lie. That's just we've seen people lie in that cage all the time.
All the time.
You know, and I see what you're saying, but if you want to fight, you're gonna lie. It's clear and simple, right? And if he's thinking about his future, then he made the right decision. Right? He made the right decision. It's a draw. But up to that point, man, he was not looking good. Sicko, what'd you think of the fight up to that point, though?
Yeah, another one of those fights. The thing I was most surprised with is Imavov's ability to take him down multiple times in that first round. I mean, Chris Curtis is a hard guy to take down. I think his like takedown percentage is extremely high, right? Wasn't it like the highest in the weight class coming into this fight? I mean, he's a tough guy to take down. And when he started taking him down, it started freezing Curtis a little bit. Curtis started thinking about, man, I'm surprised this dude's been able to take me down this easily. He starts slowing down. He's not really letting the punches go. Very similar to the Hermansson fight, right? That threat of the takedown kind of just freezes him and keeps him paused. And then, unfortunately, the clash ahead sucked. Like that, I'm just more disappointed that it's multiple fights now that happens to Chris Curtis. Like, how bad is your luck for this to happen? Like, if he didn't have bad luck, he would have no luck at this point. Like, you can't just back-to-back times you clash of heads. But I'm glad this one was called. I'm glad this one was stopped. The only thing that was surprising to me in this fight, like the stoppage itself, was that it took less time than the Aljo Piotr Hyon stoppage. Like, I don't understand how this one, they gave less time to Chris Curtis, where they were trying to drag out, like we remember the Aljo Hyon 1 fight. They were trying to get Aljo to fight. They wanted him to continue badly. So it just shows like another one of those things. And like you said, we point out stuff that, you know, with the UFC, it just depends on where you're at in the card. This one's on the prelims. This one's not a headline. You know, it's not the main event. Then we'll stop the fight. No problem. We care about your safety. But Aljo, this is the main event. It's for the championship. Suck it up and try to fight still. Like that can't be the thing. Like if the doctor's going to stop it, the doctor needs to stop it. Like plain and simple. If you go in and you have any bit of doubt, if you think this guy isn't 100% after a clash of heads or an illegal knee to the head, something that has to do with the brain, you have to stop the fight. It shouldn't be on Curtis. It shouldn't be on Aljo. Like it should just be with the doctor on that point.
Chris Curtis, man, his style, it's like when I watch him fight, it's like watching Sean Strickland fight. Don't you think? It's like so similar.
I mean, they're gonna pick up stuff from each other, like their main,
even like their hand, like it's crazy, like how the style that they have, and you know, to me, it's kind of surprising that they've reached that level with that style, because this game is so tough with those 4-ounce gloves, man. Like they take a lot of risk, you know, with that boxing heavy, you know, pressure forward. It's hard, man.
Chris has a lot of fights. Chris has a lot of fights. And then like if the sparring like rumors are true where they're just constantly sparring, like, man, yeah. No, I'm glad they stopped this fight, man.
Yeah, man. I'm a Vav.
I call him Imavov, but I could be wrong too. Yeah,
Imavov, whatever it is. He looked great. So, you know, up to that point, I thought he was dominating the fight. He used his distance well against Chris. Like you said, the takedowns along the fence. You know, he even took the back. I believe he attacked the neck for a bit in the first round. Yeah, man, Chris Curtis. It sucks for him, man. Back-to-back fights like that. It's just bad luck.
I'm going to borrow a line from someone in our watch party that comes through all the time, Bald Guy MMA. He said a sentence that stuck out in my head. He goes, I've never seen Nasruddin look this fast and Chris Curtis look this slow. And I don't know, it's just because they're facing each other. But, yeah, just adding on to what you guys are saying. Yeah, it was not Chris's night in any fashion. And on the backside, kind of sucks for Nasruddin that he doesn't get a full win for himself.
He looked good.
Right?
He was looking great. Yeah.
Yeah. He was on the way. So that's all I could.
And even in
add
the
to that.
replay, I can't tell like which one was at fault. Usually on the headbutts, you're like, all right, this dude kind of let in, you know what I mean? But on the replay, it's like they both did the exact same thing at the exact same time. Like you really can't fault either one of them. Just
Yeah, you can't, man.
bad luck,
You
man.
can't fault
Bad
them.
luck.
It is bad luck, man, and we'll see, man, where Chris Curtis goes from here. But I think both guys will be back with some good matchups, and we'll see some fun fights, man, out of them. There's still a future for both these guys in the division. I don't think like people should be moving up and down, but we could get to some of these comments. Marcus says Chris Curtis could not get inside, and Imavov was teeing off. Crazy Pato says Imavov versus Dolaze, Chris Curtis versus Bruno Ferreira. Those are good fights right there. Action Man Curtis needs good matchups or go to 170. I don't think changing weight classes and going down is going to be a solution for him, but I could be wrong. Guys, if Chris Curtis really wanted to fight to keep going, why he told the doctor that he couldn't see? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? But, you know, career choices, man. Career choices. Imavov versus Dolaze, UFC Paris. I think Pato is clear that he wants Imavov versus Dolaze in Paris.
Great fight. I mean, that's a hell of a fight right there. I like it.
It is a hell of a fight, man. It is a hell of a fight. Let's move on to some topics, man. Anything else you guys want to discuss about UFC 289 that I didn't go over?
Just real quick, salute to Ayman Zahabi. I mean, just came right out and blew the doors off of his opponent, and the poor man didn't even know he already fought. I'm sure you guys probably see those replays. Like, Homeboy was squaring up, thinking it was the start of the round. I mean, he knocked him back in time in his, So, wow, just tip of the hat. Good job, Zahabi. Keeping that family name strong as hell in MMA and still.
Yeah. And one for me is the Dan Ige and Landwehr fight, and how Landwehr rose up like the Undertaker off of that huge shot he took. I've never seen anybody hit the deck like that, and just like a weird reaction to just literally do the Undertaker sit up as soon as his head hit the back of his head hit the mat. He just sat up and tried to shoot on a single leg. But Dan Ige, again, 50K for a reason, man. That dude, he puts the paws on people. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, man, that was a great fight. I actually missed a lot of that fight. I don't know what I was doing, but I have to go back and rewatch the Ige Landwehr fight.
Landwehr showed a lot of his toughness.
Oh, too much of his toughness. His body must be made out of springs or something, bro. Like, we've watched, and John, when you see it again, man, it's uncanny. Like, nobody hits the ground like that, like Sicko said. Nobody gets popped by Ige full clean like that and still is like, I'm fighting you, bro. What's up? Like, that was nuts.
All right, guys, before we get into some other topics outside of UFC 289, make sure you guys go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app, and go pick fights, UFC fights next week. There's a pretty decent card coming up, right? Next week, I believe. So go check that out. Let's
Cannonier.
I got one thing from UFC 289 that I think we should talk about. You probably have it scheduled, so I'm sorry for jumping in there. The railing breaking out and almost killing the official and maybe injuring Michael Lyon. Just all the people falling off. What the hell is that? This isn't like a third world country. This is beautiful Canada. How do you not have the railings correct? What the heck?
I don't think it was correct. I think just people were just leaning on it. You know what I mean? They're just too overexcited.
That happened in the NFL this past year too, and the NBA.
Yeah, it happens in soccer stadiums all the time. Like, it's nothing new. It just happened to be caught on camera in the UFC live. But yeah, luckily no one got injured, right? So Canada, do better. You know what I mean? Do better.
Secure the rails.
I want to get into this topic, right? And we could get into why this is happening or this is not happening and why people are throwing rumors out there. So let's jump into this one. Dana White shuts down rumors of Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev target fight, right? So it has been targeted for a while that Chimaev is going to come back in Abu Dhabi, and there's speculations of why he's been like put on the Abu Dhabi card rather than fighting in the States because speculation says that he's not allowed to travel to the States because of his connections to a certain somebody, and he's denied a visa, so he has to fight in Abu Dhabi, which like he's been gone for a long time, right? A lot of people are like screaming and yelling about like, why is the UFC have him on stall? Like why is he not fighting? And then now, Kamaru Usman comes out and says that he wants to fight him, and there has been rumors about that, and people are saying there's negotiations, but Dana White comes out and shuts this all down. What do you do with Chimaev, man? Like, there's a guy that clearly wants to fight him. You know what I mean? And I don't think you could give Chimaev a title shot, right? It's just, didn't he miss weight in this last fight? And he beat Kevin Holland? You know what I mean? Like, what do you do with him, J-Spec?
You shuffle your decks and you schedule him for every single fight outside of the US that he can get access to. That's the easiest, quickest solution. It's also weird to me, and I know this is a US government issue, so I won't go too far into it. Like, what the hell's the problem, dude? You know where he's gonna be, what he's gonna be doing. Let the dude into the country for a couple weeks. Let him fight and then go home. Like, I don't understand this. Like, it's weird to me. Like, mixing other brouhaha, like Chimaev has anything directly to do with those crazy things happening on the other side of the world. Yeah, like he's involved at all. Like, no, what? It's silly. So to the topic, you let him fight, you put him every opportunity, you contact every embassy around, see where he's eligible to be at, and you make it happen. And you don't let too much time keep burning, because what we see this all the time, where like great fighters get time shaved off of their career for shit that has nothing to do with fighting, and it's a waste of talent. It's a waste of everyone's want and urge for someone. On the other hand, it is, oh bless you, dude. Of course. So like, well, I mean, what are you gonna do if the U.S. government says he can't fight in the U.S., bro? Well, that's the big dog. They're gonna tell you what to do. So I know, tough treading, but I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that the UFC, with all their King's Horsemen and all their King's Men, can't find somewhere for Mr. Chimaev to fight again. There you go. That's the end of my statement.
Well,
Nice.
Donald Trump ain't president anymore, so they don't really have many connections. Joe Biden doesn't even know he's Joe Biden, so
Yeah.
Brother can't even walk on a flat stage. Shoot.
yeah. Chimaev, if the question is like, can he make it down to welterweight, or he's gonna fight at 185? I mean, we've heard both, right? Because Chimaev, he knows the game now. It's like you could just say whatever you want if you're gonna write about you, right? So he could, even though he doesn't have no plans of going to 170 again, he just say like, "Oh, I'll fight for the 170 title. Give me blah blah blah." You know what I mean? Because it's gonna get the headlines. He's gonna keep in the minds and the eyes, in front of the eyes of the people that watch the sport. Kamaru Usman, I feel like he is in a position where he needs to call out someone like Chimaev, right? And I think he should fight him wherever he wants to. But the UFC said that they got different plans for both fighters. Sicko, what's your plan for these fighters? Like, who do you think should fight Usman next, and who do you think should fight Chimaev next?
Like, I could understand Chimaev being a liability for 170, but he was already supposed to fight Paulo Costa. Like, what happened with that? That was already supposed to be done. So if he's going to fight at 185, give him a fight at 185. Like, what's the holdup? And according to Chimaev, and again, like, we don't know who is telling the truth here, but according to Chimaev, he's like, I've said yes to everybody. Every name that gets rumored, I tell the UFC yes, and I never get a contract. I don't get anything official. Nothing's happening. So what's the holdup? Like, what is the UFC waiting for? What matchup are they holding off on? What do they want to see? Again, I understand why them doing something at 170 would be tough as a business. I can't have you screw up our card again. I can't have you come in 14 pounds overweight or whatever it was and not make it to 170. So him and Usman, I never thought would be a good idea. I can't have Chimaev at 170. You miss weight by that much, and like there was no remorse to missing weight by that much either. You're officially a 185er. Like, there's a lot of fights for you to be had. There's a lot of fights that should be getting done at 185. But if your hopes are for him to fight for a title at 185, this should have already happened. Why didn't we get him and Dricus? Why didn't we get him and Robert Whittaker? Why didn't we get him and Costa that we were supposed to? Like, why? What's the holdup? I don't know who is being honest here. I don't know if Chimaev is saying, but truthfully, he's not actually taking these fights on, or he isn't calling the UFC, or he isn't really contacting them that he seems like he really wants to fight. I don't know what the holdup is, but for him, his next fight, in my opinion, has to be at 185. We can't, he's too much of a liability for 170. And for Kamaru, whoever at 170, you know what I mean? Like, Kamaru Usman deserves whatever he wants at that weight class. Like, whoever he wants to fight at that weight class, cool, let's make it happen. The crappy part there is just the hold up with Colby and not knowing. And as much as I would say you could easily just do Kamaru and Bilal, like, that's just not fair to Bilal anymore. Like, that's crazy if they do that. So we'll see what happens with either one. Unfortunately, both just seem like they're getting frozen out. One is getting frozen out because the division isn't moving, and the one's getting frozen out because we don't know if it's him or the UFC that's not putting these fights together. And there's no transparency either. Like, all Dana White does is deny the rumors, but he doesn't tell us, right? All he tells us is we got plans. I mean, how long has it been now? What are the plans? Where is he? What's going on?
I fully agree that we cannot, like I work for the UFC, that we agree that I'm not risking it. I'm not throwing Chimaev with no proof that he's making 170 at all to maybe implode another card, because you're not going to have, unless you purposely do it, but you're not going to have a bunch of game dogs ready to just fight anybody for no good reason and save your card like Holland and Nate did. So yeah, dude, like, bro, show us you can make the weight, because I'm not dissing you. You're just a big dude, and you probably are an 85er. So it's too risky. And I agree, bro. Good point.
He looks actually bigger. Like, in the videos I've seen from him, he looks like a dude that has no plans to go to 170.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, like, what does Kamaru get out of that? Like, I gotta fight a young, super talented grappler. Like, that's that's a crappy scenario for him. Anyways,
Crazy Pato, I think UFC would allow Hamza to stay at 170 if he committed to never missing weight again by hiring a nutritionist. Remember, Habib missed weight like 3 times in his UFC career. Did he miss weight that many times, Habib?
He missed weight quite a few times. He made weight while he missed weight as well. So, like, but the only pushback there is Habib never fought at 170. Hamzat has now 2 or 3 fights at 185, and Habib had never claimed to go for a title run at 170. That would be the only difference between the two. And also, one name for Kamaru is Shavkat Rakhmonov. If you have a hype train that you want to go after at Hamzat, just go after the one that's actually active and actually fighting in your weight class, which is Shavkat. And that would be a phenomenal fight. I would be very excited to see that fight.
For real. Make sure you guys go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app, put your comments in the chat. We'll throw them up on the screen. Another topic that has been, I think, an issue. I don't even think it's an issue. It's just like people are starting to talk a little bit more about, and it's not in a positive light, is PFL and how it's falling apart this season with the PD failures and pretty much their best fighters losing and not even making the playoffs, right? Like Brendan Loughnane. Man, like, he's like the golden boy in a way for PFL.
Yeah.
Right? They don't have Kayla Harrison right now. So I think, like, Brendan Loughnane has been putting in the work to become the star that they want, especially out of the UK. And he goes out and, this is how the sport is, man. You go out and you take a chance and you give a guy an opportunity, and that guy went in there, Pineda. And that knee, man, that was beautiful. Such a beautiful knee. Probably the biggest upset we've seen all year. So you think so?
Yeah, this year. Yeah, I was thinking about just total upsets in general. Yeah, this year for sure. I mean, that was supposed to be a locked in shoe-in, right? Like, we're just getting somebody in here for you. You're gonna beat them, and here we go on to the next fight. Really disrupt their plans. But that's the beauty and the unfortunate part of, like, the entire layout of the PFL, right? It's not championship fights. You don't have that luxury of being able to build somebody, and maybe somebody isn't as good as you claim them to be, or they don't have to take chances, or every fight they have is just a title defense. So if they lose, you know who they're losing to. Like, because of that layout, you kind of have to try to find a way for fans to like it because of that. You have to try to get your fans educated to say, no, this is why you should like the way we do things, because it's not tailored. There's no, hey, we're going to give you favorable matchups to get there. There's no Alex Pereira that's going to happen. There's no Hamza Chimaev that's going to happen. There's no Kobe Covington that can happen here. This is what you should like about it. Whoever is at the end, they truly deserved it and had to work up that leaderboard to get there. You could sell that. It's just because it's so odd, because it's going to be so much harder to produce stars like that. It's going to be tough for them, especially if they want to get into like a pay-per-view market. How the heck are you going to have a pay-per-view market if this is your format? It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it is. It is tough, man. I thought this would be like the big year for PFL. Last year was pretty good. It worked out really well. And this year, I thought with all the additions that they made to the roster, that we would have seen, some killer matchups. And man, those PD failures, and it's all the guys that, most of the guys that you need in the playoffs, right? Like a Thiago Santos, even though he might not be the same, but you need a name like that in there to compete against somebody. The champion from last year, Rob Wilkinson, like he pops. Now people are thinking like, was he
fight? Fight dirty.
Was he doing it the whole time? Like, did he win last year without getting popped? Stuff like that comes up, and these are all questions. It seems like they're not talking about it as much in the media, is because it's not the UFC. They kind of just sweep it under the rug. And it's good and bad for them, man. It's good that they don't get the negative exposure, but it's bad because nobody really cares, right?
Well, they say bad publicity is better than none, right?
Exactly, right?
Like, if you're not getting any publicity on this, that's actually kind of a bad sign.
It is a very bad sign, and we've been getting pumped and fed the format and the season and all that stuff, and I was fully in support of it. But right now it's just falling apart in the seams, man. It's just not doing very well. You don't really have stars to push, and trash talking is not really a thing in PFL, and they kind of promote that. Like, you don't have to talk trash, and that's great. If you're a fighter, but then you gotta have talented fighters in there competing, guys that are just like, even though you don't talk trash, but you got to talk trash with your style, with your performances. And, if you're not having like highlight reel knockouts or like crazy beatdowns or something like that, it's not drawing much attention, man. And now, I don't know what to say, man. By the end of the year, they're going to, it's like, it's almost like, when you compare it to like other sports franchises, it's almost like a rebuilding year for them, like they got rid of all the main guys, like they're not there no more. So they got to rebuild this year. I think maybe that's,
they got the number 1 draft pick. We'll see what they do with that next season. Exactly,
for real, right?
I kind of disagree, man. I'm a big PFL supporter, and this is exactly the beauty, not the PED parts. To get to that part of the second half. First half, this is the beauty of a tournament. Jesus Pinedo, man, I was at his fight in Vegas, and when he lost, which he shouldn't have lost that first fight, by the way, the crowd was booing the outcome. And then we have the two guys that should just be in it. Like, automatically, everybody thinks, oh, Chris Wade, Brendan Loning, they're in for sure. They're in. Plus, Chris Wade got that first round knockout earlier in the night, which set him up to possibly be in it. All we needed was this miracle from Jesus. Not quite like that. And he comes in and knocks both guys out of it. And now you got 3 guys that you could totally, in the beginning of the season, be in that tournament. And then 1 magical dark horse enters in. That's why people watch March Madness. That's why people watch tournaments of any kind. It's the beauty of that. This is the sport, and people got to play the game, and you got to do what you got to do. That, to me, is excellent. Plus, let's be honest, PFL only has so many, stars, if you will. And Brendan Loning, even being the champ, he's about his maximum popularity has already happened. He's not going to get more popular. Sorry, just my opinion. So having a homegrown talent like a Kayla Harrison, like Ray Brada Cooper, even to a lesser degree, Clay Colliard, who's someone from them that is getting some name now, nowhere near the star levels of other leagues and whatnot. But now Jesus is a person we're going to have to talk about, at least in the playoffs, at least a little bit of stuff. So to have their league functioning like a real tournament where literally anyone can happen, I actually think that's kind of good. On the second half where we're talking about the PEDs, shameful, bro. Shameful. Jotko, Marietta, Wilkinson, and one other brother, I can't remember his name, and you don't deserve me to remember your name because you're cheating. That's messed up. It's messed up. But on the other hand, the guy leading the chase is Martin Hamlet, and I think he probably would have been. He guaranteed would have been in the playoffs, and he probably would have been the 2 seed at the very least. So shitty a little bit, but it also gives a little bit of a chance for guys like who were undersized and not on the juice, like Joshua Silveira, to be in it. So bad for the star power and people on the covers and on the posters from that point of view. Totally respect that, John. And the sport doesn't make money off of hardcores like me, right? We barely keep the lights on. We need the outside people coming in. But as a hardcore, man, I'm still in it. I'm still so intrigued by what is left in this playoffs and the other tournaments to be decided.
Yeah, that's going to be the hard part. You said it best. Look at March Madness, right? Like, that's what we love about March Madness. Do you want to be the March Madness or do you want to be the NBA? You know what I mean? Like, it's tough because what you're selling is, hey, don't invest in our fighters. Invest in the tournament. Invest in what the tournament can do. If they can educate the fans, I agree with you, Rob. Like, it makes it that much more interesting. Why wouldn't you want? Everybody loves it when the 16 seed beats the number 1 seed in March Madness. Everybody loves that fact. But the NCAA, that's, March Madness is a tournament that's been around for how long now? And everybody just gears up for that to the point where the tournament itself, the format itself, is bigger than any player and bigger than any team. Everyone's just waiting to see that tournament at the end of the year. People will go an entire college basketball season, I think, in a single game, and then be like, all right, March Madness here, I'm watching every single game because it's what you do. That's what the PFL is going to have to try to structure and educate their fans to do. Hey, when it comes to tournament time, like, be invested in the tournament, not a fighter, because that fighter could easily lose and not even get there.
Yeah, man.
It's a good opportunity for the guys right now that are clean and that might not have the biggest name to go in and win a lot of money, dude. I was talking with Ty Flores. I mean, now, he's competing against other clean guys. It's like the playing field has leveled out. I mean, he thinks like because of that, he's going to be able to go in and win this $1 million. Now, who'd ever thought Ty Flores would step in and become the champion? But he's very close on his way, and he has the style to do it without taking much damage. Yeah, man, it's going to be a trip, man, to see these playoffs play out. But like a fighter like Shane Burgos, I mean, he's still around. I mean, he can still make the playoffs. So they need someone like that, someone that's like super exciting, finish fights, and if he wins the $1 million, I mean, it's going to be massive for them because that's somebody in that division, the lightweight division, that they can like put on a pedestal, right?
Yeah,
and promote. But we'll see, man. It's gonna be tricky. It's gonna be very tricky, very tricky.
Last but not least, I don't think the PFL is sweating nothing because we had a very special guest in our watch party this past weekend, Chris Brennan, and he straight up told us that I thought this was BS when I saw rumors about it because it wasn't confirmed about the PFL throwing down an offer of stacks of cash to buy Bellator, and apparently is real, which I didn't know was real. And I guess they have until early this week, maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Somebody has to make a final decision whether Bellator is going to sell out to the PFL. So the PFL is throwing money bags at Bellator to try to buy them. I think they got enough money and don't really care all that much about how good or bad this season is perceiving by the public, as long as people are tuning in to watch these fights. And there you go. That's what I'm gonna say. I think PFL is just fine.
We still have a lot more stuff on the horizon, right? Like, we still have to see what happens with Francis.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had any news on that. Cedric Doumbé hasn't made his debut yet, and he's entering to try to get into the tournament. That was a huge signing. And then obviously still need to get Kayla back, and there's a lot of stuff still in limbo. I mean, Jake Paul, I keep forgetting that he signed with the PFL, and what happens in that like division that they created. So we still don't know what the future holds for him. But to John's point, like right now, this was a big blow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's they have some, some important pieces to grow the organization, right? Like you mentioned with Jake Paul and Kayla Harrison coming back, and Francis Ngannou. See what happens with him. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is still undetermined, right? So we can't react to that until it actually happens. But yeah, they do. And if they do go and buy Bellator, man, of there's a lot of questions with that as well. Like, what are they gonna do? That's a whole nother podcast. We don't want to get into it unless we actually see the purchase of it. I just want to get into like one last topic. Um, let's get into it, man. This one, man. Daniel Cormier dismisses Jim Miller's case for future Hall of Fame induction. This is what? What is he talking about? It's just like, what is he saying exactly? Let me see. Let me scroll down. Okay, I don't feel like time served immediately puts you in the Hall of Fame. Look, he's got more wins than anyone else, but I love Jim Miller, and that makes it hard for me. But I just don't feel like time served puts you in the Hall of Fame. There's an offensive lineman in the NFL right now that played 20 years. Is that guy going to be going into the Hall of Fame just because he played 20 years? It doesn't work that way, RC. He kind of makes a good point there, right? Like, but the offensive lineman is not holding records, right? He's not holding records. That's one thing you could point at. He's not holding records. He's been around for a long time, which is the time served situation. But man, he's just continuing to beat like the young guys, right? The young prospects and knocking them off. And you got to give him. I don't know all the records that he holds, but I think he does have a few, right? Sicko, what do you think of Daniel Cormier's comments from his high horse?
I mean, I get what he's saying, because he's saying it from where I sit and where Daniel Cormier sits are two very different chairs. I can't see things the way Daniel Cormier can, but he also can't see things the way we do as a fan. Daniel Cormier is seeing it as a guy who has all of the accolades, who's a 2-division champion, and that means something to him. And for him, it's like, if I didn't have these championships, if I didn't have these belts, why would I feel like I'm deserving of any of that stuff? So how can somebody else be? So I get that standpoint, but longevity matters. In fighting, longevity matters. Like, it's fighting. This isn't the NFL. You're talking about an offensive lineman in the NFL. Doesn't say who he's talking about. I'm assuming he's talking about Jason Peters. He's a backup. He's been a free agent for 3 years. He bounces from team to team. If he was starting and was a starter for all 20 years and was looked at as one of the better ones, he would definitely be in the Hall of Fame in the NFL as well. Anybody else? Should we not? Is Vince Carter not a Hall of Famer in the NBA because he didn't have the championships? Should he not be in? Longevity matters, like especially longevity when you're winning. I'm not saying that anybody who has a certain amount. I'm not saying Sam Alvey should be. I'm sorry, Sam Alvey. I'm not saying Sam Alvey should be in there, but there's no reason why we should look at guys like Donald Cerrone, why we should look at guys like Jim Miller and say, nah, it doesn't matter because they didn't have a strap. Longevity matters in this game because it is so hard to not only stay around for that long, but win fights at that age. Like, that doesn't happen. You are joining an elite group. And anytime you can join a very, very small percentage of guys in your field and what you do, you deserve to get recognized for it, man. I definitely think Jim Miller is a future Hall of Famer. I disagree with DC, but I can understand our points of views on this are very, very different.
Man, DC has like one kind of good point when he's trying to mix in this theory with mixing sports and hoop to hoop. I, once again, totally respect to DC and his opinions because he's been there, done that. But I full-heartedly disagree. All right, if you hold any record in the UFC, any record at all, that's a good one. I think you're mentionable for the Hall of Fame. When you got multiple of them, yeah, you should be getting that gold jacket and that little trophy or whatever they give you. How do you not appreciate Jim Miller's efforts into the UFC Hall of Fame? And he deserves to be there immediately. You don't, most fights, most wins, and whatever else he's got, but those two are not like, those aren't just like fastest knockout where like And once again, the fastest knockout was super cool and legit, but that takes luck and a little bit of whatever. You don't get lucky winning all those fights. You don't get lucky fighting all those fights. That's earned, that's deserved. And man, I couldn't respectfully disagree more with DC with this one. So it is what it is. Good luck to Mr. Jim Miller and all his future stuff, because man, he still gets people excited. Like, what fighter gets people this excited for their fights at this stage of their career? Absolutely nobody except Jim Miller. That's who. So.
Yeah, most people at this age or with these many fights in, we just go, oh no, he's fighting again. I hope he doesn't get hurt.
Cowboy,
you know what
people,
I mean?
People didn't want to see Cowboy's last few fights. That
People
was like
don't want
that.
to see Tony's next fight.
Nobody wants to see Clay Guida. We all love Clay Guida, but people are like, hey, it's Clay Guida fighting, whatever. Yeah. There's no sizzle to it. Jim Miller's fighting, and people going, oh shit, Jim's fighting. Like, bro, come on.
And that just doesn't happen in any other sport too. In any other sport, you don't have to become a champion to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, if that's the case, like, what does Nico Montano or whatever her name is, like, should she be in the Hall of Fame and not Cowboy or Jim Miller? Like, no, accolades, they're great. Once you're a champion, you're always a champion. No one can ever take that away from you. But just because you didn't get to the top doesn't mean that longevity longevity is an accolade. Like, that is something to be rewarded for, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's you make a great point about Nico Montano, right? Like, should she be in a Hall of Fame and Jim Miller not, or should Jim Miller be? If you had to choose between one or the other,
Nico's nowhere near.
What would you choose? You know, what I mean?
That's an easy choice to make.
DC needs to, be confronted maybe with that type of question. Is like, does a title? Let's say you have 5 fights in the UFC, and you won the title, and then the next fight you lost and you retired. Do you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
Well, I'll just throw out a slightly off comparison. What about like Andrei Arlovsky? So he had the title, but a long ass time ago when it was a whole different world. And so, like, just because he had the title and all these fights, he's automatic. Like you said, is that the criteria? You got to do all this extra stuff. Plus
who has a stronger argument? That's the question. Is it Jim Miller or Andrei Arlovsky? Andrei Arlovsky has a championship belt. Remember that.
I wouldn't be able to put Miller in and not Arlovsky.
Exactly. You got to put both those guys in.
Yeah,
both of them in.
Which I get. I think what DC's trying to get at is, like, because we're so early on, there isn't that many Hall of Famers. We have to be super selective with it. But even with time going on, it's not like you're going to have records pass. Like, longevity isn't something that's easily passed, right? It's not like the NFL where passing yards is kind of irrelevant now because everybody today has more passing yards than everybody back in the 80s. Like, it's not like that. Like, fighting and your record and the longevity and what age and how long you've been, how many years in, you're still getting wins. Like, it doesn't matter. That's going to be able to, you can compare that throughout the rest of the UFC, because unless people just start fighting till their 60s, like, you don't have to worry about that ever being something where you look back at and go, well, guys were just not fighting that old back then. Now they're all fighting till their mid-40s. Like, no, I don't think that's going to happen.
Also, he's fighting dudes half his age. He's fighting guys he could have fathered. Like, that is seriously awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, does that mean Nate Diaz? Definitely not a Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah. Because
if that's the criteria.
He even lost the BMF title.
yeah. So in that case, like, because what we're saying is accolades. If influence doesn't matter on the sport either, then I guess, sorry, Nate, you're not in either.
Yeah. Well,
there's too many guys that deserve it.
Let's just be real. UFC Hall of Fame is a joke. It's just like whoever they like, they put in there, right? It's just what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why did it take, Anderson Silva so long to get in there? Because there was some kind of politics playing a part of that. You know what I mean? It's just some fighters are getting inducted while they're still fighting.
Yeah. Yeah. And then to your point, exactly. Like, let's say Francis had stayed in the UFC for one more fight. Let's say he fought John Jones and won and then dipped out. You think he would ever get in the Hall of Fame?
Speaking of all this Hall of Fame,
anybody that they don't like, do you think he'd ever get it? Anybody that they don't like, you think they'd give in? If John Jones never came back and fought Cyril, how long do you think it would have been till he got into the Hall of Fame?
It would have been a while.
And in this moment that I'm criticizing the UFC Hall of Fame, guess who's going to the UFC Hall of Fame ceremony? This guy. So, I guess we can all be different hypocritics at different
Make sure you take
times.
a sign. Make sure you take a Jim Miller sign.
Oh, dude, such a good idea. Thank you.
Jim Miller.
They
Jim Miller for the Hall. We're gonna bring
they need
that for
to
sure.
start. They need to start inducting like Pride and WEC people as well. You know, like why don't they start doing that? But we're not in control of it. And to be honest with you, if people get
Is
honored,
Uriah in?
yeah, of course,
Uriah's in already, right? Okay.
yeah, that's their boy.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Who's your boy? Who's not your boy? And that determines everything. That sucks, man.
Exactly.
But in that case,
so
that's not too
subjective.
different from other places, though. That's not too
Yeah, it's
different.
not.
Like that happens in all sports.
Someday, eventually, they will make a fighting Hall of Fame, right? That's separate from like a promotion or organization. That's but that costs a lot of money too. And is it worth it to do that?
mean,
That's probably not going to be worth it.
I mean,
anyways,
bro, boxing has a fictional character in the Hall of Fame, and we can't get Jim Miller in the Hall of Fame in the UFC. Come on, UFC. Rocky Balboa was a Hall of Famer in boxing, and we can't get Jim Miller in the Hall of Fame. Come on, DC. Come on, man.
It's a joke, man. It's a joke. All right, man. There we go. The show is over. Everybody, make sure you go into the descriptions, download the AllStar app, completely free and fully customizable for every sport that you follow. So let's say you like the NBA and you like MMA or fighting, you could customize it to just have those two sports on the app. None of the other stuff will be on there. But if you like NFL and soccer, then you could customize it to have those two sports only and not see any other sports. You know what I mean? And also, if you love fighting, and you probably do, you're watching this show, you could go in there and make picks, join J-Specs League, join Harris's League, and see if you guys could win some memorabilia. That's it. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll be back next week, same time, to recap the next UFC Vegas show.
Jamal Hill.
Be safe out there.